Problems inside the Eastern Correctional Institution in Somerset County.
Something bad is going to happen unless the state of Maryland does something soon.
A WBOC News exclusive, an incident inside the prison and a desperate plea for more correctional officers inside prison walls. Good evening, I'm Todd Curley.
And I'm Steve Hammond. Welcome to WBOC News at 6. We begin tonight with this story you will only see on WBOC. Something disturbing happened at the Eastern Correctional Institution last Thursday. When WBOC got word of the possible disturbance inside, we flew Chopper 16 over the state prison and called state corrections officials that day to find out what was going on. We were told it was nothing. We called a few more times and were told repeatedly it was nothing, which did not sit well with us. Well, we finally got some answers today. It turns out the prison is severely understaffed with correctional officers, and on that day, according to a person associated with the prison, hundreds of inmates refused to go back into their cells, which led to a tense few hours. Now, to set things up for you, we're going to hear about the problems and what it's like right now inside the prison, and after that, we'll hear what the Maryland Department of Corrections is saying about what happened at ECI.
And WBOC's Bill Mish joins us now live in Chopper 16 over ECI near Westover. And Bill, you got some alarming information from a recently retired correctional officer.
Yeah, Todd and Steve, today we spoke to a former correctional officer, a former sergeant in charge here at ECI, and according to him, what happened on Thursday is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's take a live look down from Chopper 16 right now at the grounds of ECI, which are quiet now as we see, but late last week we saw COs moving from one building to the next. The gentleman we spoke with next says that's because all hands were needed to help control the situation.
From Chopper 16, this was the scene at ECI on Thursday. Correctional officers moving from one building to another. We've since learned from a former correctional officer that almost 600 inmates refused to return to their cells. That former officer, who did not wish to be named, who we will call Chaz, took a look at our video.
More than likely, they got that unit locked in, and now all of the officers are going to the next unit.
To go help.
To lock them in.
Chaz says he retired last month because he was concerned for his own safety, but is still close with many of the men and women who work at the prison and speak with them daily. And Chaz says the incident on Thursday is just the tip of the iceberg. Chaz worries for his colleagues. He says something worse could happen, like what happened last year at the James T. Vaughn Correctional Center in Smyrna, where a CO was murdered during an uprising. Chaz says when he left, the prison was 120 officers and 15 supervisors short.
Look at Lieutenant Floyd, what happened to him? That could happen like I said, any given day to any correctional officer, even if we're fully staffed. But now the odds are going up because of the low staffing and the conditions.
And union leadership for the COs agree. We spoke with union leader Jack Hughes today. Hughes says the COs are working a lot of overtime and extra shifts, a system he says must stop.
The officers, you can't sustain this when you don't have staffing that's worked 16 hours and then you draft them on the days off. They don't get time off to spend with the family. They're walking like zombies. They can't sustain this.
The former correctional officer that we spoke with was not here on Thursday. He got the details of what took place from the COs that currently work here at ECI. There was one man who was here on Thursday, Senator Jim Mathias, who stopped by when he heard what was taking place. And he said during his few hours here, there were some things that raised some red flags.
When I'm looking in those tired faces, when I'm looking at people that took the oath of this office in order to maintain the safety for themselves and the inmates here, I'm hearing that it's just not working. I'm seeing the anxiety. I'm seeing the stress.
Senator Mathias is demanding the state step in and help. Mathias says he's been asking for nearly 2 years to address the staffing issues here. The senator says he wants Governor Larry Hogan to come to ECI.
For Governor Hogan, personally, and his administration to come here, see firsthand, reach out for solutions that I know exist, and let's make this community safe.
According to Chaz, employees in ECI don't feel safe and feel like something bad is brewing.
The writing's on the wall. That's why I left. It's there. It's a ticking time bomb, and the place is going to blow up. Somebody's going to get hurt, if not killed.
Taking another look now live from Chopper 16. From what we've heard from the former correctional officer, union leader, and Senator Mathias, ECI is still on lockdown from Thursday's incident. Union leaders say a rally is planned for July 9th near the prison in support of those COs. We are live in Chopper 16 over Somerset County. I'm Bill Mitch, WBOC News.
Hi, Bill. Thanks. Those were the concerns of the corrections officers. Now it is time to hear from the Maryland Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services. WBOC's Midshore Bureau Chief Amy Liu is in Annapolis tonight. And Amy, the state says ECI is not short-staffed during any of its shifts.
Yeah, Todd, Gary McElhinney is the corrections department head, and he says as of now, ECI is short of about 94 corrections officers, but he says the public is safe. He says well before Thursday's event, the department has tried to hire more officers. Here's what Director Gary McElhinney says happened last Thursday.
It was a peaceful demonstration, protest, I would say, by some inmates who were upset about lack of recreation time and some issues involving cable TV.
McElhinney says the crew working when Thursday's incident took place was fully staffed and equipped.
Thursday didn't change our focus on recruiting. It's always been up here. Okay, we're doing everything we possibly can.
McElhinney says talks of creating incentives and attractive benefits have been going on with the state since at least January. But he says hiring takes time and says background checks and training make it hard to find and keep the right people. McElhinney says currently correctional officers are often asked to work overtime, some drafted to fill any staff shortages. Still, McElhinney says Thursday's protest and any future incidents are not a threat. Has public safety really done its job?
Absolutely. I think it worked the way it should work. I think, like I said, the plans were followed, the administration and the correctional officers responded professionally like they always do. And I think they did an excellent job in handling this situation, and there was never a threat to public safety.
McElhinney says ECI remains in lockdown and will go back to normal operations once things have settled down. Now, we also reached out to Governor Larry Hogan's office to see if there's anything on the table right now to address the situation at ECI. One spokesperson tells us that they are looking into more rewards and incentives for all the men and women who decide to become corrections officers here in Maryland. For now, reporting live here in Annapolis, Amy Liu, WBOC News.
All right, Amy, thank you. ECI was built back in 1987. It is one of Somerset County's largest employers. For 31 years, neighbors have gotten used to seeing those prison walls along Revel's Neck Road. Many who live on that road say they've never had an issue with the prison. In fact, some tell WBOC they don't even think about ECI on a regular basis. But despite a lack of safety concerns, some neighbors do worry about what's happening inside right now.
I've always thought that they've not had enough officers compared to the ratio of inmates that they have, even though their security is pretty high.
Now, problems within that prison are nothing new. In October of 2016, inmates and correctional officers at ECI were among 80 people indicted after a contraband trafficking scheme. Investigators said inmates and personnel in the east and west compounds of that prison were involved. According to court documents, 18 COs accepted payments from either dealers or inmates to bring contraband, including drugs, into the prison. 35 inmates were part of that operation. 66 of the 80 charged in that case have pled guilty. The first officer involved in that scheme was sentenced this past November.
WBOC's coverage of the unraveling issues with ECI continues tonight on WBOC News at 7. Also, for more problems, on the problems with ECI, head over to the Web Extra page on WBOC.com.